Success Center for the North Carolina system. Today, you have a wonderful workshop to look forward to. I know you're going to learn a great deal, and I will turn it over to Juanez and Juana, who will provide lots of wonderful information to all of you. If you have questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will be happy to give those to the presenters during their presentation or afterward, depending on when it is most appropriate to ask those questions. So thank you again for coming, and I'm sure you will have a lot to learn and get a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you so much, Marcy and Susan and the Community College System for opening up this space for us to be able to share together some ideas and some thoughts about building authentic relationships. We do have a presentation to share with you today, but I do want just to give you some logistical information. Juana and I are facilitators of this conversation, so we're certainly hope that you engage with us, and we're going to share different ways that you can engage with us during the presentation. Like my colleague mentioned, you are welcome to use the chat feature, and then we'll show you some other things that we would like for you to do during the presentation. But to start off, welcome again. Let's talk about some goals that we have today for this workshop. After I mention what College Foundation is and what we do. So we have a really important job in the state of North Carolina. We help students to apply, pay, save, and really go to college. So the College Foundation serves a really important purpose. My colleague Juana and I are part of the Spanish Services unit. And what we do is, we go across the state and really talk about how to better serve our Latinx and Hispanic students. So the conversation of today is really important to us. And we hope that we continue to have this conversation in partnership with you. Everything that we do and share through cfnc.org. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with this website. If you are not familiar with this website, I encourage you to go and take a look. This summer we launched a brand new website that has a lot of cool tools and resources for students. Specifically talking about our Latinx and Hispanic students, we have una sección en español, or a Spanish dedicated section where it is designed for that information that is relevant to our community. So it looks a little bit different from the rest of the website. Also, in the last few weeks, maybe month, our website will be totally available in Spanish as well, which is really exciting for us. We also have a call center in Raleigh where we have professionals that can help students and families discuss different things that we offer. That call-free number is 866-866-CFNC. And we also have a translation line that people can use to get services in their language. We do have field representatives, and you probably have worked with some of them yourself. Last workshop, we have our colleague, Brittany Privet, talking about serving Black and African American students. The next workshop would be my colleague, Skip Watts, who is also in this call today, who is going to talk about creative ways to fund education. So these people are the boots in the ground. You probably have worked with some of them before. If not, I encourage you to look for your local representative. And then my colleague Juana and I serve in the Spanish Services unit. I am located in the western side of the state, and my colleague Juana is located in the eastern side of the state. So we do serve the statewide. Some goals that we have today for our presentation is to think about relationships and developing authentic relationships as an ongoing process. So it's not one thing that we can do, but it's a series of different things, right? We're going to discuss, like any good recipe, some strategies, some ingredients. that we need to build authentic relationships. We also want to talk about the experience of our students and families, especially thinking about recruitment, enrollment, retention, and student success, since many of us are part of these entities. We're going to share with you guys some initiatives that some schools are doing, and then we're going to have the opportunity for open mic discussion. So in the meantime, what I'm going to ask for you guys is to mute yourselves, and then we are going to certainly have the opportunity for you to share your ideas, your thoughts. You can use the chat feature, of course, on the bottom of your screen. I also invite you to participate using the annotative piece that this technology offers. If you never used it before, you can go into what my screen is showing you right now is giving you those instructions. So let's go ahead and try that and see if you guys can do that. Go ahead and go to annotate, and you can either do Word or a stamp and just show me that you actually are able to use that feature. So let's go ahead and try it right now. Maybe it's not working. Maybe working now. Can you guys try it again and see if actually you can annotate? Very good. Fantastic. Yes, I like the little hearts. So thank you for doing that. So I hope that you do engage with us via this tool. It is important to invite people to participate because we just have to understand that connecting, sometimes we do need permission to be able to connect. So this is our way to say, please connect with us. We do want you to be part of this conversation. We do want you to be part of this conversation today. The other component that is really important here is that reciprocity, just understanding that we are all willing sometimes to hear and receive feedback, and also that we are open to receive that feedback. So for the next activity, I'm going to delete. I'm going to clear all of this. And then we do want you guys to tell us how you're feeling today. You can use the chat feature, or you can use the annotated just to tell us how you're feeling today. And we have 114 people, so please let us know how you're feeling today. Perfect. Thank you guys for doing this. This just reminds us that even though we might be in the same ocean together, we are all not in the same boat, right? This pandemic really, what it did allow us to see that all of us are actually in different boats, and some boats may be kayaks, right? Some of them may be paper kayaks, and some of them are seeing sharks, while some others are in really nice boats. So we really do hope that providing some sort of space to check in with people just provides that acknowledgement that that we do care, right? That we care about each other, we care about how we feel. I'm actually going to take a screenshot. I'm fascinated by this. But also makes us aware. It makes us aware that we're not all in this together, right? So today I'm dealing with people that are feeling really, really good, but then we're having some of those people that may need a little bit more caffeine to keep going, right? So our responses when we're trying to develop relationships is going to be different. And that awareness, it's crucial, especially when we're trying to develop authentic relationships, right? But having that space to check in, whether it is virtual or whether it is in person. So someone comes to your office, right? The first thing that we do is not what do you want, but what we said, how are you today? Tell me how you doing today, can go a long way. My colleague Juan and I also talked about like, okay, now I know that some people are not feeling good. What do we do about it, right? And so we're having really important conversations that sometimes the acknowledgement that you're not feeling well can be enough. Um, and also it's difficult, it's awkward, it's not necessarily right now. I'm in a virtual world, so I can see some of you guys, and I can tell you this, but sometimes when we're in person this can get awkward. And what I wanted to mention to you is that when we're trying to develop authentic relationships, it does get better. It gets better as we are, time after time practicing, it does get better. So I'm going to clear my screen. And so I have a question for you guys that are the experts. Um, Let me see if I can stop putting hearts in the presentation. What does an authentic relationship looks like for you? You can use the annotated feature, and there's a text feature there that you can actually write what your thoughts are. And I'm gonna just give you a brief moment to do that. Um, so the question is, what does an authentic relationship looks like to you? So I'm gonna start mentioning some of the words that people are saying. People are saying being genuine, so that whole being authentic, trust, accepting, supported, conversational, reciprocity, being open, being real, kind, empathetic, sharing stories, trust, being being able to be yourself. I'm going to give you guys 1 more minute, and then we're going to take a screenshot of this to keep it to continue the conversations. Being non-judgmental, being vulnerable. All right, I'm going to take a screenshot now. So you have 10
There
seconds.
are lots of people adding to the chat too.
Perfect. Thank you.
So there's open and honest, empathetic, genuine, honest, compassionate, equal respect of one another, mindful engagement, trust, respect, and honesty, interchanging support, talking freely about how somebody is feeling, willingness to share true feelings and listen. So there's all kinds of them: active listening, understanding, empathy, and support. So there's some great information in the chat there too. Thank you all for sharing.
Thank you. And yes, so thank you for sharing what's in the chat. I have a harder time seeing what's in the chat, but thank you. Yes. So all of these are ingredients, right, for authentic relationships. There's just not one that we need. We need a combination of many things. So my colleague Juana wants to um, share with you a little bit about her story and about how some of these things are played in action. I'm going to go ahead um, and clear some of this. Go ahead, Juana.
Thank you, Juanes. Good morning, everyone. We're so excited that you are joining us this morning. And like my colleague Juanes was mentioning, I want to share a little bit about how just authentic relationships can really guide us towards our journeys. And so as I'm sharing my own story, I want you to take time to think about your as either as you were transitioning to college or even a career, what was an authentic relationship that you had that might have impacted or influenced that success? So as I reflect on my own experience and my experiences and educational journey, which as I think about it was centered around access, like many students that we work with. Um, so I began to think of the transition from high school to college and throughout higher education, and how there were authentic relationships that really influenced my trajectory and that really influenced my success. So my journey begins with an authentic connection while I was in high school with a local youth organization, El Pueblo. Some of you may be familiar with El Pueblo. It's an organization in Raleigh. They're still around. And so El Pueblo came to my high school with the goal of connecting with Latinx students to promote high school graduation and higher education. El Pueblo offered me guidance, support, connections, and most importantly, I felt like they really provided that hope and inspiration that I really needed. I never thought ever that college was something that was for me. I never thought that college was an option for me, but they provided that hope and that inspiration. It was through El Pueblo that I was able to develop authentic connections and relationships with different people who influenced my educational journey along the way. One of the first connections that I made was with a girl named Amanda. She was a young, white, bilingual woman who I really connected with. She provided one-on-one attention or individualized support. She listened to me. She understood my concerns. She understood my fears of just going to college or just the process in general. Um, and she offered support. She really held my hand when it came to applying to college, when it came to applying to the FAFSA, when it came to understanding the system. So she helped me navigate the different processes. Also, one day I had the opportunity to visit NC State University. NC State was the only school that I applied to. And the reason why I applied to NC State was because it's literally 15 minutes away from my parents' house. So I applied to NC State University and we went on a college tour. So it was the first time I ever visited NC State. And it was the first time I ever visited a college campus. So I just felt it was really cool. So during my time or the campus tour, I had the opportunity to meet an admissions representative. Her name is Maritza. Um, so Maritza is one of the people that I think about that I feel like really and like really influenced my life. So during my time with Maritza, she was very intentional to getting to know me. There were many other students there at the tour, but for some reason, we just gravitated towards each other. She shared her own academic journey with me, and she shared her struggles, her aspirations, her goals, and I just thought it was neat that she was sharing all of this with me, and that allowed me to open up to her, and it kind of provided that sense of trust, confianza. So I shared with her my goals and my fears of attending college, and I even mentioned to her I applied to NC State. So I shared all of that with her, and knowing that that I had applied to NC State, she really advocated for me, and so a couple of weeks later, after going to the tour, I get an acceptance letter from NC State that I had been admitted, and I really feel like Maritza was that advocate for me. She took the time to really get to know me. She even followed up with me within the 2 weeks, and even after, she would check in with me. She made sure that if I had any questions to provide that support. So fast forward, by the time I arrived to NC State, she actually moved to a different university. She was no longer there. But I made another connection. I made another authentic connection while I was at NC State with Abraham Donis. Some of you may know him. He now works at at Durham Tech Community College, and he was just someone that was there throughout my 4 years of college, who really cared about me, who really cared about how I was doing. So he served as a mentor, as an advisor. And so I say all of this to say that my success, my transition from high school to college, and then through college, I would not have been successful. It would not have been possible without the authentic relationships and the connections that I was able to gain. And so also as I reflect, I realize that people come into your life at different times and they come for a different purpose. So each of these individuals had, in a way, they had a purpose. There was a purpose. And I also learned that relationships foster more relationships. So I think about it all started with this organization, El Pueblo, who wanted to support students. And through them, I made a number of connections, authentic connections that helped guide me throughout my transition, throughout college. Um, so it just started with that one organization that was committed and dedicated to helping the students. So again, this is just my story, my example, and you all, hopefully, as you were reflecting and thinking on your own experiences and your own relationships, I'm sure that all of us have maybe that one person or that one connection, that authentic connection that have influenced our own journeys. And now I'm going to pass it back to my colleague Juanes, who's going to talk a little bit about his experiences.
Thank you so much, Juana. That was inspiring. So I did ask Juana to provide one word to describe her experience, and she talked about access. And I wanted just to also recognize that we spend a lot of time in access to higher education still nowadays. When I was thinking about my own story, access also came as something that it was really important to me. However, we decided, for the interest of everyone else, that I was concentrating on a different piece of my story. Um, so some of you may not know that I came from Colombia, South America, over 20 years ago. I left my country overnight, and then I arrived in the big city of Hickory, North Carolina. And then there I was, trying to figure out my journey, my purpose, and what I was gonna do to go to college. I was in high school, um, just like any other day, and my story has a first and last name, Mr. Eric Brandon. You can probably see him here. He is about 6'2", 6'3", black, big old bear. I call him a big old bear. And Eric was in my high school cafeteria. And Mr. Brandon asked me a very important question. And he said, young man, what's your plan after high school? And, to be honest with you, college has been something that we have always talked about in my home, but in Colombia, right? So when we came here to the United States, I had no idea. I didn't even know that you needed to send an application or how the process works or anything like that. So Mr. Eric Brandon asked me that key question and I told him, I said, I don't know. I don't even know enough English to be able to fill out an application. And that was my story, actually. I did not know enough English to even understand the application. Mr. Brandon welcomed me to his office. He said, can you come after class to my office? And we can talk more about how the process works. And 20 years ago, the context may be a little bit different from now, but nevertheless, he took the time to get to know me. He asked me questions about what my plans were. And then he asked me questions maybe on how Lenore Ryan College at that time aligned with some of my interests. Not only he talked to me, but then he also did something that I feel like this is an important piece of this story. He asked me to talk to my parents and bring them to talk to him as well. He understood that my parents were key decision makers in college. He understood how Latinx and Hispanic families work. So he gave me and my family, he listened to us, he provided us with some feedback, some ideas, and then there it was. We made a plan together. We decided that it was my best interest for me to stay at home. I lived in that community where Lenoir College was located. So it was best interest for me financially, and also because I had some obligations within my family. I had a younger brother that I needed to take care of while after high school, after college. So together we came up with a plan. He helped me through the application process. He helped me through FAFSA. He helped me to get enrolled into college. And then not only he helped me throughout this process, but he also kept in touch. He kept in touch, just asking me how classes were going. Occasionally, I would see him, or if I didn't see him, he would make a point to call me and said, "Hey, come and see me when you have some chance. I want to just chat with you." Little by little, time passed. I graduated from Lenoir University, or college actually, and then one day he asked me if I was interested maybe in becoming someone to advocate for the college, to really help other Latinx and Hispanic students like myself with the whole transition process. And I said, of course. So this picture is me as part of the Division of Enrollment Management with my team, where Mr. Brandon sponsored me to be part of this team. So not only our relationship grew from an admission person or a recruiter, I guess in a way, to someone who actually sponsored me later on and mentored me throughout um, my process into higher education. So the word I selected was alignment. There was a lot of alignments of needs and things that the college could offer. But also, I think what Mr. Brandon did is he went above and beyond his duties, right? He could have just said, ask me a question, where are you going to college, or things like that. But no, he took the time to offer me and open that space for me to go to his office. He invited my family. And I think those two key things were crucial into who I am today. And I have only gratitude for Mr. Eric Brandon, who still works at Lenoir University. So I think our stories are just a clear um, example that our relationships were bounded by an ingredient that is crucial when we're working with the Latinx communities, and that is confianza, or that trust that was developed because our relationships grew maybe from just a relationship, but it grew to being a very strong, authentic relationship. So, what I want to mention to you guys now is that it certainly takes a village. My colleague Juana gave really good examples how an organization we can also build um, a relationship with an organization, and then they can connect us to different people along the way. But this is a clear example that everything that we do matters. And it also not only matters, but it also has ripple effects. We never know when we're talking to a student or to a family how far it goes. But what I do want to tell you, and in my story and Juana's story is just one story example, but it shows that it does matter. And if we do a poll and we ask about, to you guys, you're probably gonna have very similar stories that someone, right, it could have been you that changed your life for good. So now let's talk about some of those implications for higher education or post-secondary education, specifically when it comes to the recruitment, enrollment, retention, and student success. We understand that all of those are important pieces of the student experience. And the first thing that we want to talk to you guys about is a conversation that we actually started, and we share in the community college conference presentation about leveraging Latinx parents' cultural wealth and how we can include parents into the educational space of post-secondary education. But something that we have to just recognize that when we're working with Latinx and Hispanic families, that parents are important when we are talking about post-secondary education. One, because they are sometimes the key decision makers. Sometimes they're the ones making those decisions, right? If you're talking to the student is going back to their home and share with their parents, and their parents are actually the ones making that decision. So I think it's a good opportunity. I know some schools already understand this concept well. And I know that we have some schools that we're still working on just understanding that educación and education are two different things. When we're talking about educación, especially with Latinx and Hispanic communities, we're thinking about the holistic approach to educación, to education, right? So my mom's goal for me to go for my educación was to be a good man, to be un buen hombre, a man who does good deeds in this world. That's very different, right? That was a very different conversation, that I want my son to have a degree, right? That piece of paper that is so important for many things. But no, the goal was for me to be a good man. So those are important distinctions that we have to make. My colleague Juana then is gonna guide us through those implications. Juana?
Yeah, sure. As we're thinking about the implications, and as I'm sharing some of these implications or strategies, I do invite you that if you have others that you would like to share, as we're talking about recruitment, enrollment, and retention, to share your thoughts or share others in the chat. We will also have an opportunity later on throughout the presentation to have a discussion or conversation, or also continue to get your feedback. But if there's something that is related to that certain topic that we're in, I want to learn from you. Like, this is an opportunity for us to learn from each other. We certainly don't have all the answers, right? But together we're gonna learn from each other. So I do invite you to share your thoughts in the chat. So as we're thinking about these implications, we want to start off with recruitment, right? If we're wanting to build authentic relationships with students, everything that we do is really going to impact the educational experiences of that student. So one of the first things that we really recommend is to understand the challenges and the barriers that Latinx students face in accessing higher education. For example, navigating the different processes. You heard in my story and Juana's story how we both had two people. We had individuals that were helping us navigating the FAFSA, navigating college applications, just navigating the process in general. So a lot of times there's a challenge in navigating the different processes. Also, there are federal, state, and local policies that can be challenging and that can be barriers for the students that we're working with, especially when we're working with students that are from mixed status families whose parents are immigrants. And a lot of times these students are facing significant challenges and barriers. And then we're working with students who may have to pay out-of-state tuition. And so affordability is another big challenge and barrier that they may face. They're thinking, can I afford this? Can I afford to go to this college? And then also majority of Latinx students are first generation students. And so they have very limited knowledge of the college admissions process, but also college life. They don't have a tío, a tía to ask them like, hey, what was your college experience? Like, they don't have their parents who they can ask about their college experience. And so a lot of times Latinx students don't have that adult to learn from their experience. So there's that limited knowledge when it comes to the college life in general. Also, my colleague Juanes talked about that language barrier, right? And so we have to be mindful that students may not understand fully English, and but also thinking about the parents. Juanes talked about he talked about how, you know, he didn't know the language, and so he worked with his mentor. He worked with Mr. Eric to help him with the process, and so he also talked about how families play a huge role, and making they're like decision makers for students. And so having material content in Spanish for the parents is also going to be important, and just kind of being mindful of that, right? That the language barrier is huge. And something else also to keep in mind is that the educational system is so, in our countries and in Latin American countries, they're so different from the US. And so we have to keep in mind that they're just different systems, different processes. And so, here we have the 12th grade, right? But in a lot of our countries, there is no 12th grade. And so, you know, just thinking about some of those challenges and barriers, and understanding those, and being mindful of them, can definitely help as you're building relationships with students. But also be familiar with the Latinx culture and the values. Um, from our stories, we learned how confianza, trust, caring, and connections are important for us when building relationships with others. We also have learned that Latinx culture places strong value on family and unity. And also just how much family matters. Reciprocity is also a value within the Latinx culture. And so when we think about these values, if we know how important the family is, let's make sure that we're working not only with the student, but that we're intentional in connecting with the family, that we're intentional in talking to the students and having a conversation and asking the students, how are you doing? How can I help you? What concerns do you have? And so again, because knowing the culture values and the barriers can definitely help us, and guiding us as we're building those relationships. Representation is always important as well. You know, I think about the connections that I made, and they either spoke my language, or they shared similar experiences, or they looked like me. So having that representation when it comes to recruitment, and having individuals that can share similar experiences, language, um, having them at the forefront, right? So if you don't have, um, let's say if you don't have a bilingual staff member, maybe you can recruit students. Maybe you can get students to help you. I mean, you heard Juanes, he was helping the campus, and became a leader for the campus, and helping other students. So perhaps you can recruit other students, Latinx students, to help with that process of recruitment if you don't have representation within your office. In addition, personal connections and transparency is also so important, right? We talked about the literature in Spanish for the families, for the students, but also I want to put more emphasis on the personal connections and the transparency when we're working with students. Many times recruiters are the face or the first point of contact for the university. So the way that we engage with the student can affect the overall perspective that they have on that college. And so it's very important that we are being intentional, that we are providing a welcoming environment for the student, or that we are providing welcoming language, and being transparent with the students is key, right? Be transparent about the opportunities on your campus, the areas for growth, and do not overpromise, right? Sometimes students might say, well, what opportunities do you have for Latinx students on your campus? be honest. If you don't have any opportunities, tell them, look, right, we don't have any opportunities right now, but here are some things that we're working on, or here are some things that, you can come. And if you want to start a club or an organization, we have support staff that can help you with that. So like, just be honest and transparent with students, about the process, about the resources on your campus, and just, just, I think honesty, we talked about honesty, and some of you, when we talked about what makes an authentic relationship, some of you mentioned honesty and transparency. Also, thinking about, making these connections, we have to be present in the community, right? And so leveraging on the sense of belonging already in your communities can be a starting point for us. So think about, those faith-based organizations, those grassroots organizations, or nonprofit organizations, in your communities, and promote collaboration and engagement, um, and connect with them. A lot of times there are the faith-based organizations that the parents are just very connected with, and they feel comfortable, and they've already built that trust with the community. So take the time to connect with them. And I will be sharing some examples on how some campuses are already, doing this at their schools. But leveraging on the sense of belonging already on their campuses, is, on your in your communities, is very important. And think about, meeting parents in areas that they are comfortable with, and that are convenient for them, and not really convenient for us, right? Sometimes we do have to go out of our way, to meet with them, and where they are comfortable, to start that trust, right? To start that relationship, building. When I was, traveling, right now we can't really travel, but I just remember meeting, families at a trailer park. We were at a church. It was a church community, but we met with them and inside a trailer, where the parents felt comfortable coming. And so we had college advisors, we had, principals, we had teachers. They all came to that little community to meet with the parents. And it was such a successful event. And you could see that the parents really valued, you could see that the parents really appreciated that their presence in that little community. Um, Also thinking about, right now, because we are in a virtual world and in a virtual environment, how can we, be present in their communities? And thinking about social media, one of the things that we have done, at CFNC, is connect with Hispanic serving organizations and grassroots organizations, that are really well connected within the Latinx community. So, I was invited to, do a Facebook Live with, um, a Facebook group called La Pulguita. La Pulguita in English stands for the flea market. And so, this is a Facebook group that has over 10,000 Latinx followers. And so they invited me on their platform, and it was so successful. It was such a successful event. It was through Facebook Live. There was so much engagement. So it was an opportunity for me to connect with those families through their platform, a platform that they trusted, an organization that they have already built that confianza with that organization. So we've done Facebook Lives with La Pulguita, Isla, which is an organization in Durham. We've done Facebook Lives with Latino centers. We've collaborated with Amexcon, LAWA. So again, just thinking about those organizations in your community that have already built that confianza with the family, starting there, and just being present in the community. Right now, we can't do it physically, but how can we do it virtually? And so, thinking about all of that, and then remember that families, the family really are the decision makers many times. I think about my journey when I was going to NC State, and, how I almost didn't go to college because my dad did not want me to go to college. And so his thoughts really, really influenced me. But we have to think about recruiting the family. When the family is on board, the student is going to be on board. And so really being intentional at providing that literature, in their language. Having that representation, whether it's students, whether it's faculty. If you don't have that representation in your department, maybe you can work with other faculty and staff at your school to partner with you to help with connecting with the communities. So these are just some examples, some implications on recruitment. And I'm sure some of you have others, some of you may know of others. So we welcome you to share some of your other thoughts or what you're doing on your campus. When we're
Juana,
looking, oh yes, go ahead.
one thing that you and I talked about was the idea of the family is looking at the pathway that you're creating with the students. So if you have younger siblings, um, they're paying attention. And I just wanted to make sure that you brought out that point.
That's right, Juanes. And with that, like you're not just recruiting that senior, right? But you're also in a way recruiting the younger sibling, you're recruiting the cousin, and many times you can even recruit the parent. And so thank you for mentioning that and adding that.
I just wanted to ask, one person just put in a chat, which is relevant right now. Due to heavy family engagement, do you encourage Latinx students to go to a college close to home versus out of state or distance from home?
I think it really depends. I mean, you heard Juanes' story where for him, it was more convenient to stay close to home. And I personally only applied to NC State, which was a school that was 15 minutes away from my home, because I really didn't know that I could. I mean, I really didn't know, and I also thought about, oh, this is the campus that's close to me. But if students, I personally, I encourage students that if they want to go across the country, or if they live in the East and they want to go to school in the West, to pursue like their dreams. A lot of times, I personally feel that guilt. I call it the Mexican guilt. I'm Mexican, so I call it the Mexican guilt. Like sometimes our parents can make us feel guilty for wanting to pursue our own educational or our own goals. And so it's that guilt that sometimes like gets to us, that stops us from wanting to pursue our own dreams. And so it's something that I continue to see in working with students. But I always encourage students and tell them, if your goal and your dream is to go to a school that is across the country, do it. But I always tell them, make sure that you're involving your parents in the process, because if your parents understand the process and there's a connection at the university that they've made, they're going to feel more comfortable with you going to that school. Juanes, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Encouraging people to follow their dreams. Also, some people may not realize, but distance learning, it's popular within the Latinx and Hispanic families. You may not realize that, and it has been for years, because a lot of them they still have some obligations at home that they chose to stay. So for me, my decision was to stay close because of what worked for me. But we always encouraging the student, of course, whatever is best for them and their family.
Thank you, both of you. That was very helpful.
Yeah, thank you for the question. All right, so let's move forward in looking at some implications on enrollment and how we can work on building those authentic relationships even through the enrollment process, right? My colleague Juanes was mentioning how they're all interconnected, right? And so when we think about enrollment, one of the things that we encourage you or invite you to do is use language and terminology that is welcoming to students. So is your campus, are they doing that? Are they using language that is inclusive and welcoming? And also, is your admissions process, how many of you are familiar with your admissions process, with your admissions application? I'm just curious. Juanes and I, we get several calls where students are concerned about the applications, about having to sometimes identify themselves as undocumented or DACA. And so I invite you to, if you're not familiar with your college application process, to look into it, because the more you know, if a student comes to you, you can actually help that student. You can help that student feel comfortable with the process. And so become familiar with the enrollment process and thinking about the terminology that may deter students from applying and enrolling to college. For example, on our college applications, we're still using the term alien. And so, when a student applies, we're asking students to identify themselves as US citizens, US permanent residents, or non-immigrant alien. And so students sometimes, when students are undocumented, or when they may have an immigration status that may be up in the air, like DACA, right? Um, they that kind of like stops them. It deters them from continuing the application. And also, we have found that students feel like a lot of times this is the first time that they're having to share their undocumented status with a stranger, right? And so when we are working and connecting with students in the recruitment, that's what's so important, to really build those authentic relationships in the recruitment process. Because if a student is working on an application and they get stuck on this question, and they get stuck on having to figure out whether, okay, do I put DACA, do I put undocumented, do I put that I'm a non-immigrant alien, like what does this even mean? When they're having those questions, they will have you to come to. They will have you to help them through the process. And sometimes it may not even be someone from recruitment or admissions. Sometimes it could even be a professor. It could be someone that is working in a different department. And so I really do encourage you all to become familiar with the terminology and to become familiar with the process. Also, I invite you to understand the policies that are affecting students that are wanting to enroll in college, the enrollment policies. And again, the more you know, the more you will be able to assist the students, right? This is the point here. Like, when we are knowledgeable, we can help them through the process. And when they trust us, they'll know that we're telling them, that we're being honest with them. So understanding the policies around RDS, financial aid, college admissions, understand how these policies do affect immigrant populations, how these policies are affecting mixed status, students that come from mixed status families. And if you're not familiar with these policies, ask for training. Ask for training, and your department, your supervisor, ask for training. And so um, I came into this role not knowing any of these policies, not knowing any of how it affected students. But I have, with connecting with different folks at the community colleges, at the universities, I have learned all of these and how it's affecting our communities. So again, take the time to understand these policies so that you can be advocates for that student, so that you can help the students through the process and help them to feel comfortable. And that's why it's important. Again, let's build those authentic relationships. Also, be empathetic and include yourself in the solution. A lot of times we have to deal with very sensitive information. And so when we're working with students, just kind of hear them out. Someone said active listening. Whenever we were talking about what makes an authentic relationship, active listening. Listen to your students. And make yourself part of that solution, right? Juanes and I will get phone calls from students. And I always try to be very intentional and, okay, what is it that you need help with? How can I help you? And so I make myself part of that solution, because a lot of times I realize that I am not the first person that student has called. I'm probably the 10th person the student has reached out to, right? They've probably went to their parents, then they probably went to their counselors or their college advisors or their friends. And so I always try to make myself or help them with the solution. And so let's do the same, right? If a student comes to you with a question and you don't know the question, well, let's help together. Let's work on finding this answer. And so make yourself part of that solution. And that's why it's important to understand the policies, the process on your campus, the resources. Um, and so also like which department is responsible for what. One of the things that I've seen when visiting campuses is sometimes faculty and staff are unsure which departments are handling what. And so making sure that you're becoming familiar with the different departments and their roles and responsibilities, um, and that you're able to connect the students. And so when you're listening to students, they're going to share sensitive information. And so being mindful in how we're going to handle certain situations and how we are working with the students is very important. So when students are more comfortable with you, they will share information with you, right? So when dealing with sensitive information, we have to think about how are we communicating with the students? How are we how are we communicating with the students, but how are we also dealing with that information? And so dealing with sensitive information is something that you may be dealing with as you're working with students. Also, parents, understanding that parents can serve as student advocates. Because Latinx culture values family and unity, you may find yourself with a parent visiting your office, either with the student or by themselves, and the student may not know the language. They may come there because we really, like, our parents really trust the educational system in the US. Like, parents really value teachers, counselors, the education system. It's a value that they have, and they trust. They trust you. They trust you guys, and so they may come to advocate for their students. And so when that does happen, um, make sure that you are providing a non-judgmental environment where the families feel comfortable and that they can feel part of your school. Like they feel like they're welcomed. And so a lot of times parents may come not even knowing what questions to ask. They come because they've had a conversation with the student and the student is having trouble, so they come not knowing what to ask. So take the time to connect with that parent. Or the student, right? Sometimes you might see that the student is being an interpreter for the parent. So, but take the time to help them understand the policies. If it's something that's preventing them from getting information due to FERPA, explain it to them, right? Our parents may not understand FERPA and the policies and all of that. So it's very important that we are being mindful um, that parents might come, and how do we make them feel comfortable? How do we make sure that when they leave out the door, they're going to be comfortable returning back to your campus and speaking to you, or that they're going to be comfortable that their kids are going to that college.
Juana, can we stop for a second and
Hmm.
talk about FERPA? It is a bigger deal than a lot of people realize, and we have some questions in the chat about FERPA. So let's make a placeholder to talk a little bit about FERPA. As you guys know, FERPA does limit the type of relationships that parents can have with you, but also it's understanding that you have to provide that process to the family in a way that they understand really early on. So if it's not part of your orientation process to have more than just 2 minutes and 3 minutes to talk about FERPA as a form, I think you need to create a session about Latinx and Hispanic families working through FERPA. I don't know, Juana, do you want to give an example that you have? You have a great examples. I'm hoping that you share with the team. But what we're trying to do here is recognize that higher education in the United States has not been designed to work with families and parents.
Hmm.
And as the parent, as the student is moving through post-secondary education, it seems like the voices of the parents are usually disappear or diminish. So what we're trying to do is figure out how to work together in this space, right? Juana, do you want to share that example that you have? You have a great example. I love that example.
Yeah, no, I just yeah, I can share. When I went to NC State University, I just remember my dad did not understand why he didn't have access to my grades, why he didn't have access to my schedule through the school, right? Because he was so used to going to my high school and just getting all the information he needed from the principals. And so he didn't understand all of that. And the reason why he never showed up at the office at NC State is because he didn't know where the heck to go. NC State is a huge campus. And so he felt lost, and he just felt like I was hiding information from him. And he didn't understand. He was angry with me, and so it took him a while to understand. It's very important that we are taking time to have those conversations with parents. And I want to go back really quickly on the dealing with sensitive information, because I have two examples really quickly that I want to share with experiences that I have had. So when dealing with sensitive information or students, we have to think about how are we going to communicate with that student, right? So if we are working in financial aid office and we are working with a student who is has maybe told you I'm independent, I'm applying for the FAFSA as an independent student, and and these are the reasons. I've dealt with trauma, I've dealt with abuse. And if you tell the student, well, write your life story, or you email the student, well, I need you to write your life story. That student is going to do what you tell them to do. So I had an experience where I was working with a student who was told by the financial aid office, I need you to write your life story and tell me why you're independent. So this student had to relive their entire trauma, their abuse, physical, emotional, mental abuse throughout their entire childhood. And so the student had me read their statement because they wanted to make sure that it was good. And so I told the student, I don't know that you should submit this. This is very personal. And I encouraged her to call the office. And she said, well, this is what they told me they needed. So I share this example because, we have to be mindful and thinking about, how can we first help the student feel comfortable and like being able to provide this information, and how do we make sure that we're telling them exactly what it is that we need? Like, does the student really need to relive the trauma? Like, so let's be more intentional and mindful, and maybe instead of sending an email, let's pick up the phone, let's have a conversation with that student, and let's tell them like, hey, this is why I'm going to need this. Let's make sure that you're providing this information, and not just saying, I need you to write your life story. I mean, come on, guys. I'm just thinking, let's be more intentional. I know that many of us are limited on time. I know that time and resources are limited. And I know that sometimes we are assigned to like 400 students and it's only one of us. But, there's got to be some times where it's like we just have to really go out of our ways a little bit to work with that student and get the information what we need. So I'll just share that one example so that we can move forward with the rest. So as we're moving forward and thinking about these implications, let's talk about retention now. And so it's so important to build those authentic relationships with students as we're thinking about retention, to ensure that the students are feeling comfortable at our campuses. And so creating a culture of care is essential, right? So creating a culture of care beyond the academic experience. Like Juanes was telling us earlier, right? Let's ask each other. Let's ask our students, how are you feeling today? What can I do for you? And it may be uncomfortable at first, right? And so he mentioned this. It might be uncomfortable, but it does get easier. It gets easier with time. And so if you're creating a culture of care, students will realize that they matter and that they belong at your school. So having that sense of belonging will be is so essential for the students. And so once you start doing it, I mean, they're going to talk to their parents, they're going to talk to their cousins, like, man, like this college has some amazing professors, this college has some amazing people that really care about me, like they're doing this, they're doing that. And so it's going to also, they're going to be advocates for your school, they're going to be recruiters for your own school when you're creating that culture of care. And see the student as a whole, right? And I think that sometimes we can forget, like, we can't forget to do that because we work with so many students. But seeing the student as a whole, especially right now when we're dealing with so much. COVID has impacted so many families. It has disrupted a lot of homes, jobs. It just has really affected. And so checking in with students in this virtual world is so important. Asking them, do they have everything that they need? Is there anything that you can do with them, for them? If they need an extension on a deadline because they lost power, give them that extension. And so just working with the students, showing them that you really care, in your classrooms, in your departments is key. And so I want to also share another example with you because this is something that really made my heart so warm. There's a student, a DACA student, this is about a few months ago, a DACA student at a college, at Wade Tech, I'll mention the college, at Wade Tech, had reached out to a faculty member on her campus, and she was worried that she could not pay the $595 to graduate from from Wade Tech. And so this faculty member, what she did is she sent a mass email to her colleagues. And within less than an hour, 15 people had committed to donating enough money so that she could pay, so that she could graduate. And so that's just an example of how we can create that culture of care and connect and work with others. And so again, that's just one example, and I have so many others more. But creating that culture of care is definitely essential. Working with students, and as you're creating this culture of care, asking students to share their own experiences, and also for you to share your experiences is important, right? It's okay to be vulnerable. Share your struggles, your successes with your students. This is really going to help to build that trust. And so vulnerability, again, just remember that vulnerability is okay. Celebrate Latinx culture on your campus and your classrooms. Hispanic Heritage Month is a great opportunity to do this. Dia de los Muertos, that is my favorite. Oh my God, Dia de los Muertos, that's my holiday. I love celebrating Dia de los Muertos. So celebrate other Latinx holidays in your classrooms, in your departments, on your campus, having potlucks, Latinx dinners, but make sure that you're inviting and including faculty and staff, because that's also going to help to make those connections and leverage on that sense of belonging of the students on that campus. And representation and mentorship, again, bringing the faculty and staff, including your Latinx faculty, staff on the campus, but also offering mentorship opportunities for the students. And so that can definitely also help lead to that student success and that trust, that sense of belonging, that confianza. So let's look now at the implications for student success. So here I just want to mention that everything that we've mentioned right now, it all connects, and they're all interconnected, right? Like Juanez was saying, it's a ripple effect. Everything that we do matters, and it's going to impact the experiences in retention, recruitment, enrollment. And so everything goes back to student success. So let's think about setting those high expectations for our students. Offer encouragement and empowerment. Uplift the students, encourage students to take on leadership roles, connect them to opportunities like internships, scholarships, employment opportunities that you may be aware of, push them to reach their highest potential. Also, be aware of the diverse talents that students have and that they bring to your campus, and help them make connections based on those skills and the talents and interests. But also, how can we continue to help our students grow, right? Think about the skills that they bring, like bilinguismo, bilingual, bicultural. Latinx students, they have navigating two different cultures, so they have those navigational skills. So think about how you can include them in your departments on your campus, how you can help them grow and continue to, for them to continue working on those skills and even gaining new skills. And so when you're again, just creating these opportunities for the students, realizing their talents, and creating check-in space. I think creating check-in space is important throughout the entire process. Asking them how they're doing. Is there anything we can do for you? I talked about how Maritza really was so great in checking in with me, but also just remembering that engaging with Latino families is so important when we're thinking about building those authentic relationships with our students on our campuses. It's not just about the student, it's about the entire family. And I'll tell you this from personal experience, and in hearing Juanes, you can also see how important it is as well. So now I'm gonna hush and we're gonna move on to learning from you all. So Juanes, if you want to continue with the conversation, that would be great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Juana, for those implications. So we recognize that building authentic relationships is not an easy task, as you guys probably are seeing some of these implications that trickle throughout the whole experience of the students. But we do know that you may know the answers or may have some ideas. So here's the question, and you are welcome to use the annotated piece of this conversation, this tool, Zoom, so we can talk about this. How can we build authentic relationships with our students when we have limitation of time and resources? One shocking statistic that I continue to hear, especially from counselors at the community college, is how overwhelmed they are on the caseload of students. The recommended caseload is about 250 cases per one advisor. And some advisors are dealing with 400 plus students per advisor. So how can we build authentic relationships with our students and families when we have limitation of resources? So you are welcome to put anything that you have on mind through the annotation, please. And I just want to make sure that that feature is working. Can someone tell me if that feature is working for you? Oh, yes, perfect. Thank you. And you are welcome also to use the chat feature as well. Juana, would you like to say out loud some of the things you're seeing?
Yes, so I'm seeing, ask my students if there's anyone else in their family they like to involve in our conversations. That's great. And I can't read the acknowledge commonalities to celebrate difference. Something as possible as learning to pronounce names correctly. Yes. Oh gosh, I can only think about how many people yeah. Okay. Engage student clubs to help with showing them around campus. Invite their families to participate. Connect through trusted community groups. Yes. We could develop more efficient. Oh, it left. Let me look at some of the chat. We invite parents to our registration meetings with their students. This helps build trust and relationships. That is wonderful. What a great strategy. Being consistent and present in the community so that interactions can be informal when we are off campus as well. Yeah, definitely those informal interactions can be very empowering.
Let's have one more minute, short minute, and then we take a screenshot of some of the things you have said that are going to help us to continue this conversation.
Someone said, create calendar reminders to reach out to each student on a regularly. So creating calendar, that's another really great idea. Love that. Develop more efficient administrative practices, grading attendance to find more time to build relationships with students. give students resources they can access to help them in their classes. We cannot be afraid to engage with our students. Thank you, Laura. That is, yes, very, very true. Let's see what else people included in the chat. Communication in different formats, virtual meetings, videos, images, emails, calls, way to reach all students and families.
So that's a great one that leads us to the next one, which is how can we build authentic relationships virtually? I'm gonna try to hold on one second. I'm gonna try to clear everything that we have said so far. And this is really relevant right now. All of us are working, many of us are working from home. Many of us are teaching from home or from other virtually places. So how can we build authentic relationships virtually? Give us your thoughts here. Juana, are you seeing some things in the
Yeah.
house?
Host families, Zoom meetings. There's a comment here. I wasn't sure if it was for this question, but if families don't live nearby, attempt to hold virtual meetings with students and parents to invite them into the conversation. If time is truly an issue with a very large caseload, perhaps small groups in lieu of individual meetings. Hold community engage Zoom, Google Meet meetings, flexibility. I use every avenue to stay in touch. Zoom, text, phone, email on a regular basis. And how many are any of you having to communicate via WhatsApp with some of your students? I have found that some people are having to communicate via WhatsApp. Or even sometimes like FaceTime because the student doesn't have minutes on their phone, so they use their Wi-Fi.
Juana, one of the things that I'm seeing here when people are saying connecting virtually is that they are connecting with the intention of connection. And I think that that's a really powerful concept, that we're not connecting because you do have a class, right? That we're not connecting because of this, but we are connecting for the whole reason of connecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we do care about each other. We want to know how you're doing. And I do this frequently with you, Juana, throughout this pandemic. We just call each other to say, how are you doing this morning? Like, like, I hope you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for some of this
And
comment.
Juanes, I wanted to just bring up a comment just that was mentioned. Some people have found that virtual environment has been more difficult, and so we totally understand. And so hopefully some of these suggestions, some of these ideas may help. And like Juanes said, connecting with the intention of connection. But I hear you. I definitely understand that it can definitely be a lot more difficult. And it is more difficult making those connections with students in a virtual environment. Juanes, are you taking screenshots? I can
I
take.
am.
Okay.
I'm loving all of this. Yeah, Juana, the other day I was talking to a group of people that showed up in one of the presentations we did, and they all share the flyer through a WhatsApp group. So I don't know, for those people doing those things, I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I know some people share in the chat already some things that your schools are doing, that are some initiatives that your schools are doing to cultivate that relationship building with Latinx and Hispanic community. But I think what I wanted to do here is I wanted to just, oops, this is when you but I would love for you guys to put your thoughts, your ideas on what are some of the things that you have seen, some of the things that your institutions are doing. For example, I heard in the chat from St. Hills Community College, where they started the Hispanic Community Outreach Committee, which is really great. There are some other people doing some other great things. So please share anything that you feel is important here for us to know about. This is also a great space for us to connect, to see who is doing what where. And then my colleague Juana will lead us into showing some examples of some great things that some of our colleagues are doing within our wonderful educational system here in North Carolina. So Juana, what are you seeing?
Yes, so faculty racial equity training includes culturally responsive teaching, and then Men of Color Scholars Institute. Someone in the chat mentioned that they have an ESL director at their school who is dedicated for the ESL population. And have they been able to help students and invite them to their school to help them with different processes.
And I know we're asking hard questions.
I created a Google Voice phone number to be able to text my ESL students after office hours. And someone said that they like to hear what some high schools are doing to reach out to Latinx families. That's right. Durham Tech has Center for Global Learners. And a lot of the information that I've learned in regards to the policies, I just really want to give credit to Heidi White from Durham Tech, who is so kind and patient and helping me understand a lot of the policies. I have heard our community college president is also planning to engage with local preachers, ministers to plug into religious organizations in the community. Wonderful. I love to hear that the community college president is getting involved. We have translated English materials into Spanish. I'm a career coach and I partner with Spanish teachers to reach out to the Spanish students. Great, so I love that collaboration with the different staff and faculty. And also something to keep in mind when we are translating, like making sure that we're translating in a way that parents is going to be easy for parents to understand. And so, sometimes translating, like Juanes and I do translating a lot of the time. And so we really have to make sure that it's going to be written in a way that parents can understand. And having those native speakers and those whose language is Spanish can be definitely important when doing those translations.
And then the other thing too with translations, Juana, you and we also always have interesting conversation with translations, because one word that you may be used to in your country might not be the same in other countries. So having some sort of Spanish that is easy for everyone to understand, it's ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Someone mentioned that hold on. WaitTech has integrated a recruitment outreach officer position to focus on Hispanic outreach. The current representative, Jose Fabre, was also a former student government president. He speaks fluent Spanish. Wonderful. Some people said that, yes, they do use or work with teachers to help with translating. Someone mentioned that they would love to hear or have some ideas regarding recruiting and retention of adult ELA students. So maybe could it be another session? But if anyone has ideas, feel free to add them in the chat or use the annotate feature.
And Juana, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, especially at this point of the conversation, is that if you don't have anything going on, maybe there are organizations in your community are doing already that type of work that you can plug in specifically. I think you have some really great examples, Juana, to share. So let's go ahead and start with those examples. Let me go ahead and move forward this presentation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we just want to highlight some of the initiatives that we have learned of or that we've been a part of at the different colleges and universities. And so I want to highlight Surrey Community College and who hosts, I want to say well, I was part of their Sueños event or Dreams event for 2 years. And then this year, I can't remember if they had it, this virtual world, everything shifted, but they have a Sueños event that is geared towards Hispanic, Latinx students to help them understand college, like the college process. And so they do an amazing job in collaborating with other organizations in their communities. And so they invite Latino achievers. They've invited the Mexican consulate to come and speak about their programs and their opportunities. And they invite faculty and staff from their campus to come and connect with families. And so when I've attended in person, they just have such great attendance and such great engagement from the community. Also, Pitt Community College, they have a Latino day on their campus. And they actually collaborate with a local organization, Mexicon. And so they are working in collaboration with this organization who has already built trust in the community. And so they're able to collaborate and work together to bring the Hispanic Latinx students to the campus. Beaufort Community College also in collaboration with the TRIO program. And also they've collaborated with a Mexicon. They have hosted Latino Day, but they also have done a really great job. And during Hispanic Heritage Month, the Hispanic Heritage Month, to celebrate Latinx culture. And so they have these potlucks, they have these salsa and chips event where they invite faculty and staff to interact with students. The students are able to bring food that probably their parents cook for them. And so engaging the parents that way is really fun, can be really fun because we love to share our favorite traditional dishes. And also Durham Tech has done a really great job with having student ambassadors. And then in their office, in their Center for the Global Learner, I remember going and visiting one day and meeting, there was somebody at the front office who spoke Spanish, who looked like me. And I was like, hola, what's up? And so we were talking in Spanish. It was just really neat. Like I just felt, it was just such a great experience to see that. But they do such a really great job and leveraging on the talents and skills of their students. We also wanted to share some examples that four-year institutions are doing, right? And so ECU, they also collaborate with their local organization, Amexcon. Amexcon is just popular in the eastern part of the state, and they have Latino Family Day. El Centro Hispano, they have a mentoring program where the college students are mentoring high school students. And so what a great way to really amplify those skills and the talents that our students have by allowing them to help other students. And then we have Caminos and UNC Chants that they offer those summer programs. So those summer programs, that summer engagement is also key and important as we're thinking about engaging with the students and their families as well. And then lastly, we have Guilford College, who they have done like 14, this year was their 14th annual conference, Soy un Líder. And so it's a conference that was co-founded in 2007 by two undocumented Guilford College students. They founded this conference and it's still going strong. And then also the Noche para Padres Latinos is a collaboration that from Lenora University, CFNC, and other community organizations. So you see that a lot of these organizations or events, like it wasn't done alone, right? We can't do it by ourselves. We have to collaborate and work together. And so just wanted to share and highlight these examples. And we love to hear the things that you shared. And to close everything off, I just, I think we have learned that authentic relationships matter, that the way that we interact with students and everything that we do is going to influence the students' educational experience when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to enrollment, when it comes to student success. and retention. And so we all of us, every single one of us, we all play an active role in those educational experiences. It's not just the recruitment office, it's not just the enrollment office, all of us, we all do. We can really truly impact and influence the students' educational experiences. Relationships bounded by confianza is a key ingredient needed to foster Hispanic and Latinx student success. And we talked about some of those other ingredients, right? We talked about the active listening. We talked about honesty and empathy. So all of that is important. The importance of family, the connection with the family, and not thinking about just the student and how impactful the family is when students are making these decisions. And we will continue to learn from each other. I just love hearing your thoughts, your input, learning about what you all are doing on your campuses. There's so many opportunities, whether we have a whole bunch of resources or whether we have limited resources, we can do so much. There's so much that we can do. So we want joining us this morning. Juanes and I, if you want to continue this conversation, let us know. But we really want to thank you for joining us, and we hope that this information will help and guide all of us, right, into building those authentic relationships with our students as we're connecting with them on a daily basis. Juanes, is there anything you'd like to add?
We probably overpromise in terms of the open mic. We wanted really the opportunity to have an open mic conversation with some of you guys today. But you know what, Juana, I'm available, so I'm happy to stop recording. That way we can kind of have that conversation done for our colleagues and friends, and then we can continue the conversation in an open mic. I can stay for a little bit more, and I know, Juana, maybe you can too, and then we can continue this conversation.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for engaging with us today. Thank you so much for crafting the space in your schedule to stay with us. We certainly hope that is not a one-time thing. I hope that it's a conversation that is ongoing and that we can continue to learn a lot from each other. So thank you.
Right. And
And
Juanes,
I
I
wanted
did.
to,
Oh,
oh, sorry. I just want to say thank you from the Student Success Center for taking time out of your busy schedules and attending one of our PD sessions. Please check out our website to find more information about future sessions. Thank you so much.
thank you.